Welcome to the Embodied Wisdom Podcast.
So you've been in the space of helping marriages for a while. So I want to ask you this very important question.
Okay.
Why isn't marriage working right now?
So marriage doesn't work right now because of childhood, because childhood makes marriage. That's the most important thing I can say. And the reason it's the most important thing I can say is everybody I talk to doesn't know childhood makes marriage. They don't know that. They never heard that. And if they did hear it, they didn't know what it meant. Childhood makes marriage. What does that mean? They don't know what it means. And the reason is they have nobody explain it to them. Like, you've had families talking to their children. And when they pick, that child picks a mate, they put a filter system on, and they go, "Oh, I don't know, this one's for you," and they start to, like, "Oh, I don't want to say anything," but they do that, all that kind of thing, because they're trying to protect the child from marrying the wrong person. And so that filtering system is a way of telling the children childhood makes marriage. Childhood makes marriage. What does that mean? That means everything that you're going to get when you marry that person is you're going to marry a family. You're not marrying a person, you're marrying a family. And because you're marrying a family, that private life you think you're going to have isn't going to be private because the family is going to be in your life. And when you have children, boy, you're really marrying the family. And so when you marry a person, you marry a family. And so childhood makes marriage. What's that idea? The idea is when I take my subconscious mind with me into the marriage, it's going to come in and I don't know it's there. I don't know my subconscious mind is there because the conscious mind doesn't know anything about the subconscious mind. Doesn't know. They're like divorced. And because they're divorced, people don't know that my subconscious life is going to come with me into my next life with this person. And so what if they have abandonment, if they have abuse, if they have neglect, if that makes them a chaos kid? And so that's my term, chaos kid. And so why doesn't marriage work right now? Because you or the person you marry is a chaos kid. And so that's my little standard of 10 to 0, my scale I've been using for 15 years. The scale is if when you're at the top of the scale, you're married by two people who love each other and got along really well, and they raised you to be a purpose kid who's got a purpose in life. So when you're a 10, that means your parents were great and they taught you really well, so you're a 10. If you're a 9, that means they didn't get along so good. If you're an 8, they got is even more fighting. So 10, 9, 8 is still a pretty positive family that raises the children with purpose. So if you're down going lower than the scale, it's 7, 6, 5. And 7, 6, 5 is called the twilight zone. And that's where they don't really raise you. And the reason they don't raise you is because they got their own struggles that they're trying to figure it out. And they don't know they have kids because they just kind of like they're an inconvenience. So because that twilight zone is there, you can raise yourself. You can raise yourself because you didn't get all the teaching and all the values and all that from the parents. So what you got is whatever you learned, and you learn it on your own. And so then that brings us to chaos, 5 down to 0. And 5 down to 0 is where you have abandonment or abuse or neglect. And if you have all three, it takes you lower and lower and lower until you're a 0. And I've met people who are zeros. And it's because they all this stuff, abandonment, all the abuse, all the
Wow,
neglect,
Larry,
all
there's
there.
zeros?
Yes, there's zeros.
Oh
There's
man,
zeros.
do you ever say that to them? You look at them and say, "You're definitely a zero."
Well, I asked them to tell me the story. And they tell me the story of their childhood. And I'm asking, so I'm looking for abandonment, abuse, and neglect. And they go, oh, yeah. Well, they've got the stories. And they start to tell us. They're not hiding anything. They want to tell me whatever happened. And so they tell me the story. And remember who I'm talking to. I'm talking to a person who is in a marriage, who is a stayer. They're staying in the marriage. Who do they talk to me about? They talk about the person they married. Who is that? The leaver. The leaver is leaving and doesn't want to talk to me ever. So I talk to the stayers, and I've been doing it for 15 years. I've been talking to the people who stay in the marriages, and the people who stay, they're in their right mind. They've got they love their chaos kids. They don't know what to do about them, but they love them. And so they've got this life where they're like trying to figure out what am I going to do because I have this surprise in my life, this person I didn't know was there. And why did they not know it? Because childhood makes marriage. If they would have known, if you marry this kid who's got abandonment, abuse, and neglect in their childhood, that abandonment, abuse, and neglect is in their subconscious mind. It's coming up into their adult life. And when they get to between 35 and 45, somewhere in there, that thing is going to come out. And when it does, you are at great risk of that person being in a midlife crisis. Now that's
Well,
predictable.
what I find, Larry, because I deal with the same thing. I started really just focusing on marriage. What I find is we all have active trauma.
Yeah,
And yeah, you number people, and that I could see how that's valuable. But when I witness all the women that I've witnessed, they have some form of unhealed trauma, unhealed woundings. And some of them have no idea that they looked back at their childhood and they're like, you know what, I had a pretty decent childhood. But when we really zoom in, because what we're looking at are the patterns. So whether or not they're attracting the same toxic person, we're looking at the patterns. Okay, did you model after mom or dad? Did you attract mom or dad? We're looking at the very specific patterns, and I find that most of them have a parent that they model after, and then they marry the other one. But I find that almost everyone has live active trauma in them. And
Mhm.
the wounding, oftentimes, because we know of epigenetics, on the moment of conception, all mom's DNA and all dad's DNA become yours. So you have trauma in you that you didn't even experience or even know is there. So the wounding, the abandonment, what was the third one you said?
Neglect.
Neglect. I find that most people have at least one of them, and a great deal of people probably have all three just due to their epigenetics.
Mhm.
And so what I find is there's a lot of toxic relationships out there because people actually aren't digging into the healing work, because the trauma is not the problem as the way I see it. I think trauma is a great gift that we have. It's our subconscious way of keeping us alive. However, if we don't heal the wounds attached to the traumas and we still have active um, that active tag on the event, then here we are with the wounding. So do you have a way that you really deal with the wounding in your clients, in your people?
So when we're talking about, you're talking about the inner child, Tammy, right? The
Yeah.
child that, like, this is a weird term to people because when people, they live in a system where they believe in behavior or they believe in energy.
Yeah.
And so when they come into my world, they come in with a belief about behavior and a belief about energy. It's almost
Mhm.
like they have religion. When they're born into the religion of behavior, they believe in it. I want to change the world. I got to say something and do something, and that's what they believe. And so they
Yes.
believe in behavior. So they come in. I want to introduce them to the religion of energy. And so they like go like, I don't know if I want to trust energy. Like I can't handle it. I can't touch it. Right. So they really struggle with the whole idea of energy, but they don't struggle with behavior because they believe in behavior. And so every time they ask me a question, it's always a behavior-based question. What am I going to
Yes.
say? What am
Yeah.
I going to do? Right.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about the wounding, who's wounded? Well, there is a little 6-year-old or 4-year-old something child that's living in the mind. And that child is like literally a child stuck in that moment, living that over and over and over again. And so that's the child that you've got to find out, how can I reach that child? How can I calm the child? I can secure that child, make that child feel good. And in fact, you become the parent for that little child inside. And until you really are ready for becoming the parent of that child, you're kind of not ready to change to your energy. Right? But
Yes.
that's really what the work is. The work is to find the child and to calm the child down, because the idea that there's a child in your mind that's 6 years old is like most people don't
Right. We're like,
get
no,
into
I'm
it.
this 43 woman in the
Yeah,
mirror. And
that's
it's
right.
like, no, you're like describe it this way. You are like a Russian doll. And every age you've ever been still resides within you, very active within you. And if any of those ages have open woundings, like I noticed my 4-year-old would come out when I'd get triggered. I'd have like a tantrum. And I'm like, why do I turn into like a 2 to 4-year-old when I get triggered in this way? And I really had to do, like you said, I had to go in my mind and I had to nurture her. I had to pick her up. I had to ask her, how are you? What's happening? You're safe. You're okay. I literally had to nurture her for 2 years straight until she would become okay. And now I don't have to spend as much time with her, but now I'm dealing with my teenage self. Larry,
That's great.
she's
That's good.
spicy. She is spicy. But I think that's pure gold because I notice that people shift so quickly when they can go in there and they can pick up their little 4-year-old self or their little 7-year-old self, wherever they were when they were really, really wounded. That's when they really start to release a lot of negative emotion that they have trapped in their body. So I'd love for you to tap into that energy part because some people have a really warped view on what energy is. So could you go into a little bit about what energy is?
Okay, so let's talk about what energy is. Um, so the idea of energy is the idea of a uh, a s- a invisible world. And the reason it's an invisible world is because we can't use our five senses on it. Our five senses can't tell us about energy. We like sight, sound, taste, touch. It's all made for belief in the body, right? So what the five senses are going to do is say, "Hey, this is the body. This is where you live. This is what you are." Right? All that's five sense based. So if we go beyond to a sixth sense, to a sense beyond the five senses, we start realizing there is what you think, there is what you believe, there is what you imagine. That's energy. And what you believe and
Mm.
what you think, what you imagine, it actually activates the imagination, which is the picture place of the mind. And that's the place where you see things, right? So when you go into the world of the invisible, what's really there is a picture place. The imagination is there, and when you're in the imagination, and now uh, uh, athletes, the Olympic level athletes, when they study and work on their body world, they use imagination, and what they do is they practice the maneuver perfectly, and they practice every time perfectly without actually doing it. So what they're doing is they're using the imagination to tell the body, this is what it looks like when I do this perfectly, right? So they've done tests. Like, okay, let's have these people practice this in the body. And then let's take another group and let's have them practice this in their mind, right? And so the mind practicers always do better than the body practicers. And the reason why they do is because the people who make practice in the body, they have to encounter mistakes. They have to, right? And so that means the body practice is going to encounter mistakes, but the mind practice has no mistakes. So that's the idea that like we really respect Olympic ethics, right? So if the Olympic athletes say it's good, it's got to be good, right? So the whole idea is that the world of energy, I'm thinking, I'm imagining, I'm believing. And so when I look at what I think, imagine, and believe, and so I portray this as two worlds: the world of the body, and that's the world of behavior, and the world of energy. And I illustrate them as religions because we can kind of understand what religions are. Because with reality, religion, you have belief in. I have belief in this religion, right? And so if I'm a really devout Catholic, I believe in Catholicism. I'm really devout Jew, I believe in all of the Jewish religion, right? So when I believe in a religion, I have a whole big belief system tied around that religion, right? So if we illustrate it as the belief in behavior and the belief in energy, and I sometimes ask people when they're really struggling with this, they have never read a self-help book in their life, for example, right? I'll ask them, so if we have a belief in the religion of behavior and a belief in the religion of energy, how much belief do you have in behavior and what percent belief do you have in energy? And I go, oh, 10% energy, I think, and 90% behavior. I said, good, let's start there. I really believe in behavior. And so what are you going to think about? I'm going to think about what to say. I'm going to think about what to do. I'm going to like why I'm not going to see my husband. I don't know I don't know if I'm going to affect him, right? Why? Because I believe in the body. The body's got to be right here in front of me. And then when I see behavior, I can see that he gets me. I can see that's what behavior sounds like. Behavior sounds like if the body is here, I can believe in it, right? But what happens if he goes 1,000 miles away? Can you affect him anymore? Well, in energy, you can, because in energy, there's no time and there's no space. And because there's no time and no space, which is to a behavior person, that's a wild, crazy idea. No time and space. Well, how can I live without time and space? I got to have it, right? So when people start to really start to move from the belief in the religion of behavior, when they start moving into energy, what they're doing is they're starting to test it a little bit at a time. Like I had just tell me today, I tried one of your ideas, And I just didn't react. That was her way of trying that idea. I didn't react. And like a superhuman effort, her behavior was I didn't react. And so when she didn't react the way she normally does, her husband responded completely differently. And he started to like really start to be interested in her, started to hug her. And she said, he started to hug me. And I know, I think this must work, right? So what's she talking about? She's talking about one thing. She didn't react when she normally does, because that's how a behavior person discovers this thing. Energy is different than behavior. Energy can do what behavior cannot do. Behavior cannot do anything in a troubled relationship like a midlife crisis. A midlife crisis, all alarms are up, all guards are up, all warnings are up. A person in a midlife crisis is really not touchable and reachable through behavior. So if a man sends a woman a dozen roses and she's in a midlife crisis, she smashes them on the floor, right? Why? Because all kinds of subterranean reasons from her subconscious. Why don't give me roses because, and there's all kinds of elaborate stories.
I gotta know, because you've been talking so much about midlife crisis. Like, hey, Tammy Cox here. If you're ready to stop repeating painful relationship patterns and finally create the love and connection you deserve, there is a way. Click the link in the description to schedule a call with me, and let's talk about what's really holding you back. Now, back to the show. I totally have been there, done that. Like, so I got to know, what is a midlife crisis? Why do we break down at midlife? Like, what is it all about?
So remember, when you're in your first 10 years, all the instructions come in. So if there's abandonment, abuse, and neglect, it goes to the subconscious mind. That's where it stays.
Yeah.
And now your body grows. And it's growing into teenage years to 20 years. In your 20s, you're indestructible. You're going to live forever, right? But when you get into your 30s, something shaky starts to happen, right? You start to see things weird. Like, why? Because the subconscious messages start to come for you when you're in your 30s. And as they start to get stronger
Why?
and
Why do
louder,
they come in the 30s though?
because you're weaker. See, when you're in your 20s, you are indestructible. You can be touched. But when you're in your 30s, you're vulnerable. You're more open to, oh, what does that mean? Why is that happening? Right? You don't know. So the midlife crisis, why is it at midlife? Because at midlife, the subconscious mind is starting to express itself in a really big way. And now your personality, which was built in your teens and 20s, right?
Okay.
And it's founded on childhood.
I
But
thought, I thought it was almost solidified by 7.
Yes, it is. Yes,
Yeah.
it is, right? But we don't care about that. Us
Yeah.
behaviorists, we don't care about that, right? Because we don't learn childhood makes marriage. We don't know that, right? So if I'm going to step into the world of being married, what am I really stepping into? I'm stepping into a special relationship that doesn't include all the stuff of the people in my life, all the friends, all the family, all the coworkers, all those relationships. They have nothing compared to this love relationship. Nothing. Why? Because the love relationship is super close, super intimate, super vulnerable, very, very touchy, very, very fragile, easily kicked off the top of and knocked off for weird, quirky ways, right? That love relationship is nothing like any other relationship. It's nothing like any other relationship. Nothing. Why? Because every vulnerable, weird thing you're going to see is in the intimate relationship. It's going to be there. It's going to be there. It's going to be on your doorstep, right? So I do this thing with the 10 to 0 scale, right? And so I've been asking people for 15 years to tell me where they are on the scale. Why do I need to know that? Because if I don't know that, I don't know anything. Because what do people do when they talk to me? They talk about what happened. What happened today? What happened last week? What happened a month ago? That's what they're talking about. That's what they're obsessed with because they're living in behavior, right? And so what are they talking about? They're talking about what just happened. And so I don't care about anything. Anything you told me about what happened I don't want to hear it. I don't want to say that, but I don't want to hear it.
I know. I like with my clients, I don't want to listen to any of that. I want to find the pattern and let's track it back to
but
the childhood.
That's because you're going to the bullseye, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to go to the bullseye. They want to go everywhere else. They want to go down to the
They want to
bullseye.
complain, don't they?
That's
About
right.
their spouse.
They want to vent, right? So anything you say, there's no solution in the situation. That's my phrase. There's no solution in the situation. So if you go to the situation and talk about it, you're just killing yourself because it's just going to make everything really bad, right? So these people who marry, childhood makes marriage, what are they going to step into? They're going to step into the most fragile, most delicate, most vulnerable, most easily destroyed relationship on earth. Like, well, why is it that it's that easy to break? Yes, it is that easy to break. Now, your coworkers, not easy to break. Your uncle, not easy to break. Your friend, not easy to break, right? All the relationships, all the other relationships you can have on earth, nothing compares to that intimate relationship.
Yeah,
Because
but yet, okay, so like, you know, the old school marriage has dissolved, right? What marriage was 50 years ago, what it was 100 years ago, what it was 200 years ago, that's gone and done because that's when women were literally owned by men. They went from being owned by their father to being owned by their husband.
that's
We
it.
didn't have our own money, like we couldn't even have our own bank account until what, the 50s or something. So here we are newly in this like feminine rising, right? The balance has been completely thrown off. Marriage has been completely thrown off, which is why I think less people are getting married, less people are staying married. We're just at a standstill. And I'm almost wondering, what is marriage even going to look like? Will it even be around in 50 years from now?
Well, you remember you said it's not like it was. One of the major reasons for marriage was to exchange property. That was a big reason for it. That's
Yeah.
right. It was a very good method for moving property. You move it from this person and their blood characters that they have babies, and then you move it over to these people, right? So the whole thing about family was super strong, especially when you look at recent history, the last 200 years. The last 200 years, everything was about moving property and people making families. And those families, they held together. And if the woman was unhappy, you didn't know it, right? They were still busy making babies, right? And they had big families. And so that all that structure was really good to making everything really solid, even though the woman was not, quote unquote, not happy, right? So what we found is men, they had to have sex and then they ended up making babies and they needed a woman to do that, right? And so it's like the whole thing was kind of very disrespectful to women, right? Because women were disrespected for centuries, right? There was a woman was not a thing, right? A woman was like a dog or a woman, right? It was like it's so
Yeah, we weren't viewed as fellow human beings. We were
that's right.
not.
So, but I want to point
Mhm.
something out about history, and specifically, I'm talking about the Old West, the American West. The American West is you start to dig into the stories of the American West. You know what you find out? You find out that the women who were back east, right? Because the men who went out for the gold and all that stuff, they went out for the rough, all that rough, tough stuff, right? What they wanted was not the prostitutes in town. What they wanted were the women back east, right? And so they were writing to them, right? They're writing. We have the letters, right? We have the letters that spell out this devotion these men had, right? But what the men's goal was, I got to get her to come out west, right? And so what happened? The American West was changed by what? Women. Women changed men. And by the way, these women were not soft, easy, like, oh, honey, what do you think? They were not like that. The women who won the West were strong women. They were all you look at the history of these women, they were strong, hard-natured women, and they really didn't take no guff from nobody. And that's actually how they got the men to build the hospitals and build the orphanages and improve the cities and have sewers. And they did that. Those women got the men to do the amazing work. And you see it. Go to Boulder, Colorado. Go to Denver. Look at the history of all those characters and all those families, and you'll see there's a strong woman behind every man. And so when you start to learn that, like you start, well, so strong women won the West? Yes, they did. Strong
Mhm.
women did. And so here
I
in
like
this one,
that.
this is women with no rights, no privilege, no, right? That's what everybody likes to focus on. But when you look into the history of these women actually made men do every good thing. That's what they did. And so when you realize
That's what
that,
women do.
yeah, that's what they were.
Make
They
men
did it
do
back
good
then.
things.
They did it back then, right?
Yeah.
And so you see that in the last 200 years. And so when you start realizing what's going to happen to marriage, marriage is going to evolve into the next thing. And what's going to really be driving it all is that men are going to be lonely. And men are going to be lots of men are going to be lonely. And because they're going to be lonely, they're going to have a need. And the need is a woman, right? So the man's going to need a woman, and he's going to start looking for her. And I hope that someday men start to realize childhood-based marriage, because there's a lot of women who are chaotic, like you just said. Like, women have their own live trauma, and so that if we take, because I've been spending 15 years talking to people who are 10, people who are 8, people who are 5, people who are people who are 0, right? And when you're a 0 married to a 0, and I found some of those, a 0 married to a 0, what does it take to be a 0 married to a 0? You've got to be abandoned. You've got to be abused. You've got to be neglected. And you've got to marry somebody abandoned, abused, and neglected. Well, what is the chance of that happen? Well, let's start with AA. AA is a fabulous place to find people who are 0s married to 0s. Why? Because when they wander into their Alcoholics Anonymous world, what are they taking with them? They're taking all the pain of their lives, right? And so you used to get all these people start coming together, and they start to like marry each other. And when they marry each other, they're getting into the most fragile of all relationships. Like, let's don't fool around with this, but they do fool around with it. They think, hey, I can be a piece of happy. I can maybe have a little minute, maybe, where I could be happy. A person can't make you happy. You teach that. You teach that nobody can make you happy, right? So since nobody can make you happy, where am I supposed to go for happiness? So where do people go? They go to religion, they go to Eastern religions, they go to drugs, they go to alcohol, they go to all kinds of places, physical places mostly, because they're trying to find happiness. But if you read the Chicken Soup for the Soul books, uh, those Chicken Soup for the Soul books are like millions and millions of copies, right? Why?
Mhm.
Because it's a book of stories. It's a book of stories that are inspirational. And these are people who turn their lives around in some way. And remember Chicken Soup for the Secretary Soul? Chicken Soup for the Athlete Soul? Remember? Why did they make all these books? Because they found stories for those people, secretaries, athletes, right? They had all the stories. And so when people learn these stories, they love them. They inspire them. They make them feel better, right? So I typically find that people come in from the world of behavior. They typically don't have a very big self-help library. They don't read self-help books. They don't know what they are.
The zeros?
Yeah, the 0s don't read self-help books. And so the chances of a 0 being saved by somebody who's raised higher on the scale are pretty low. But that's one of the questions I ask. Like, did somebody bring you up the scale? So, yeah, I know how bad your life was, but did somebody bring you up the scale? And then sometimes I'll hear, well, I had this coach one, I had this teacher, I had this neighbor, I had
Yeah.
this, right? And that turns out to be a person who really affected them in a big, big way. So that life of about when you start coming back, oh, what's going to happen to marriage? Marriage is always going to be here. It's not going to be what it was, a transfer of property. It's not going to be what it was as a terms to a way to be happy. Uh, Being in a marriage to be happy uh, is like kind of a strange formula for trying to find out, like, oh, if I could be married, I could be happy. And have you ever watched the Hallmark Channel?
Yes,
The
I
whole
have.
the Hallmark Channel is all about illustrating people falling in love, right? That's what it's all about. The whole thing. There's nothing about being married. It's all about falling in love, right? And so when you watch that, you start to get the idea, like, wow, this feels really good. I want to fall in love. And so we're all just going to be selling falling in love all the time. And so
I
that's going
wish
to be
I
part.
wish everyone would fall in love with themselves. What a beautiful world we would have if everyone healed their trauma and fell in love with themselves. That makes for a beautiful union with anyone else. When you have two people that are so beautifully connected to who they are on the most intimate level, and the love just like oozes from every pore in their body, and everyone that comes around them just like gets splashed by it. Like I feel like we all need to heal. I feel like even the people we look at and we're like, oh, they got to be a 9 or a 10. I feel like even they have shit that they have to deal with. Right. And for me, what I really had to understand was that we all have both the dark and light within us. And it's our relationship to them that makes for a whole being or not.
So I have this new book. This is not the woman I married. Right? This is a book for men. It's not a book for women. This is not the woman I married is a book about the men I've been talking to for 15 years. And what did they say to me? Oh, this is not the woman I married. Why? Because the woman they married comes with a subconscious mind. And that woman that with that subconscious mind takes over the personality, not the woman you married. It's not the woman you married. Who did you marry? This is a chaotic mess. This is not who I bought. This I signed up for this, but I didn't get it. Right? And why is that? Because that woman was falling into a midlife crisis because childhood literally is predictable. When I say childhood makes marriage, I'm saying marriage is predictable. The quality of your marriage is predictable. You can know it in advance. But the reason you can't know it in advance is because of the love drugs, oxytocin, dopamine, right? Those love drugs will distort everything in your world because when you're in love, you can't see things very clearly. You can't know things very well at all because, like, this whole idea of the subconscious is going to travel with her, it's with her all the time. Are you really even ready to know what that means? Not if you're in love. If you're in love, those love drugs are going to keep on making you not be able to see very hard things. When you told the story about loving yourself, my story is a story of loving myself. I lived 27 years of a marriage made in hell. In the 28th year, I literally fell in love with myself. And so remember, I'm married to Marcia, the toughest, roughest woman in the world. And she was really hard on me, right? Because she's hard natured, I'm soft natured. And I didn't stand a chance with her. I couldn't fight her. I couldn't beat her in her own game. And so what she was doing is she was making my life really hard because she's what a hard woman is, right? That's very tough, very hard. And so when I finally fell in love with myself in the 27th year, I fell in love with my wife because I love myself. I could love her. And that was a huge discovery to me because now I realize like, oh, this feels good. And that's really what life really needs to be about. I need to feel good. If I personally need to feel good, if I personally can feel good, I'm going to be happier. And that's what people don't want to do. They don't want to look inside and say, I can make myself happier. I can fall in love with myself. I can like who I am, right? But because that little child inside is always demanding that they're wounded and afraid and angry, right? All those things are still operating in the subconscious. So that's why I love the imagination, because imagination lets you visualize all this stuff. Because when you turn the little child as a child, it's you're holding a little 4-year-old on your lap, and you're in an adult body, and this child is in a child body, right? The child is sitting on my lap, and I've got photographs of myself in that body at that time, right? And so now I can hold that child and I can speak to that child in a really affirming and building way. And as I start to teach that child that that child is valuable and likable and everybody's a fan of that kid, well, now the kid starts to feel better. Why? Because I'm the parent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying you can do this. You're really good. You're worthwhile. So when you start to teach that child that they're really something really valuable, and that child starts to feel really valuable, you start to feel valuable because you're talking to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some people don't understand, but physics even tells us there is no such thing as time and space. So consciousness doesn't have doesn't have time and space. So when you are spending time with that little person, that's your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between the imagery you're picturing in your mind, a dream, or something that actually happened. So you get to create that. So it's actually one of the biggest tools I have in my tool belt is inner child healing because, like I said, it works so fast.
Yes.
Because
Surprisingly fast.
you get to reparent yourself. A lot of people call it that reparenting. Um, or inner child healing, but it's very potent and very powerful. Yeah, what I know to be true is like, I've been with my husband 19 years, and it wasn't until I went through my own healing journey. And I started to realize that there is nothing separate from me, that if I'm going to be happy, it's going to have to start within. If I was going to feel satisfied, if I was going to feel passionate, whatever it was that I wanted to feel, it was going to have to start within me and ripple out. It wasn't going to be something that I was going to siphon from circumstances or another person. It had to start within me. And when I learned that, I understood how powerful I was and that I could have anything that I want as long as I'm not looking to someone else to create it.
Mhm. So you know this, right? So who knows this also? The 5,000 authors on Amazon. There's 5,000 authors on Amazon, right? Why are there 5,000 authors? Because there's that many people like you in the world writing books, right? And they all know this. They teach this stuff all the time. But the stuff you just expressed, it's being expressed by 5,000 authors, but the world's not getting it. They're not getting it because they're not reading the books, or they're not reading
Because
the
they're
books
not,
at
and
a
they're not
time of
ready.
need.
Yeah. And I think they're not ready to receive. For me, I was in so much pain. I experienced a very traumatic childhood. And when I got to adulthood, in fact, it was when I became a mom and my triggers started sounding off. It wasn't midlife for me. It was when I became a wife and a mom, all of the alarms went brrr, and I could not live with the pain anymore. So for me, it was either I'm going to kill myself or I am going to heal myself. There was no in between because I was suffering that bad. And so when you're in that place, you change. You take in everything, every book, every type of therapy, everything, right? But it was all band-aids until I really started to deal with the trauma in that 0 to 5. And until I did that, I couldn't shift my identity. But once I did that, I understood that my identity was malleable.
Mhm.
My beliefs, those religions you were talking about, those are malleable. But you don't understand that if you don't do the inner work. And I believe it starts with just the belief of, what if I could change my life? What if I don't have to live with this pain? What if I could have what that person has? Why do they have it and not me? Just asking these questions can lead you to your healing journey, because if someone else has something and you don't have it, you got to say why, which will always come back to a belief. What is the belief that is in the way? So, yeah, the reason why people aren't reading the books is because they don't believe that they can actually change.
And then the book's got to come along at the right time. The can't just exist. It's got to be coming along with the person. The person and the book has to come together at the right time. If it comes together at the wrong time, boom, it's gone. If it comes together at the right time, bam, it's magic, right? So
Yeah.
you've done that with lots of people, right?
Yeah, synchronicity is just
Yes.
it's beautiful. It's like, hey, you ready for the next level of your involvement? You ready for the next step? You ready for the next step? It might be no like 5 times, but that sixth time, it's like, oh, I'm ready. I can hear it now. It's like when you read or listen to a YouTube and you did not get the message the first time, but then all of a sudden you listen to it again with a different understanding and it just clicks for you because you're in a different energy, right? Maybe you're more open, you're more receptive. Like I said, for me, I was so desperate to get out of pain. And sometimes people will come to me and they'll be like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll just get divorced. And I'll be like, that's fine. You could go through 5 different phases. Like, that's fine. Come back to me after 5 more marriages, and then you can finally face this pain. But I'm telling you what the issue is. And you don't have to live with the pain another second. But by all means, if the alarms aren't sounding off like they were for me, for you, then you're just not ready. That's okay. Go experience some more pain and then come back to me.
Yes. And then you got to remember, how many people remember you later? How many people remember your like surprise? Like, you
Oh,
remember me?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, they I never forget a face. I remember everyone, but they I have had a lot of people come back and be like, "Okay, you're right. I'm still in pain. The pain's only gotten worse. Let's deal with it."
Well, that's a really a mature thing to say. for a person who's ready to say that, like I'm ready, I'm ready. I really feel it now. And I've looked at it over the years of people who are not ready and people who are ready. And the people who are not ready, it's amazing how spooky and Twilight Zone like they are. Like they don't really know, like, am I ready to learn something that I don't know? I don't even know why. Why do I need to learn something I don't know? They really are just in a kind of Twilight Zone. But the people, when they get the pieces come together, and these are actually what you're talking about, pain pieces. When the pain pieces all kind of line up together and they all kind of click and they make the person go, oh no. They really realize how bad it is and how much should I be on a different course with a different person, with a different teacher. What do I need to do instead of this? Right. And that's when they find the right person. Right. And everybody's looking for the right person. And when they find the right person, they're in a great place. And when they don't find the right person, they're not in the right place because they're not ready to learn. You've got to be ready to learn. And that's something I've always repeated, something you talk about all the time, which is pain teaches. You've got to be in pain because without pain, you're not learning. You've got to have pain.
Pain is the greatest teacher.
Yes.
And it's such a gift. I wish people would stop judging it. It's such a gift. Don't you want to know when you're burning your hand on the stove? Like, don't you want to know when you're burning your meat suit? Move your hand. Ouch. Right? It's like all it's doing is letting you know, is there something here that we get to deal with?
Yes.
Right? Do you tend to work with more male, females? What do you tend to
Uh,
work with?
so it's so I started out early on attempting to work with couples,
Oh,
like a couple could learn together.
oh gosh.
Yeah, well, there was a premise I had that couples could learn together, right? They can't learn together ever, not ever, not any couple.
No, Larry, no, they can't
They can't learn together.
because they want so badly. It's to blame it on the other person. It's not them.
It's really funny when they're learning an idea at the same time. They both have two views of the same idea. So here comes the idea comes into both of them, and they both take two different positions. One takes one position, which is a little more critical, a little more fault finding, and the other one is more optimistic, right? But they take two different positions. And this, because they take two different positions on literally every idea they're learning, it's very hard to learn. What's that Retrovi, the Catholic marriage seminar? They bring couples together. They bring couples together. They think they can teach them. The Catholic Church really believes that, right? And so when I've seen Retrovi people later on, and they don't really learn together, right? They kind of act like they're learning together, but they're not learning together. So what I ended up doing is I ended up getting a men's course and a women's course. And I'm so committed to that. I've got messages for men and I got messages for women. I never bring them together, ever. This is why this is called This Is Not the Woman I Married, because the other book's called This Is Not the Man I Married, right? You got to talk to them separately. But that's how dramatic it is. They can't learn at the same time. But when I saw that, I had a Army colonel who had a wonderful marriage, and he wanted to know what I was teaching. And so he said, would you put my wife and I through that course of yours? Because I want to see what men are going to learn. And so this is like a U.S. Army guy. And so I'm taking them through the course, and it's like 7 sessions. And sure enough, around session 4, the wife loses interest, and she doesn't want to attend anymore. When she loses interest, he loses interest, right? Now, I'm talking to a high-ranking Army person, right, who's supposed to be working with people, right? And so he's trying to find out, does this course that Larry's teaching, can it help my men, right? He loses interest because she loses interest. And like I saw that and I thought, aren't you supposed to do your job? Aren't you supposed to find out about this so you help your men? No, my wife lost interest, so I can't be interested. So that's what told me, I had some experiences like that, is that couples can't learn together. And so since they can't, I got to take the most in pain people, men, and I got the most in pain people, women, and I got to separate them, come to their own communities, and they don't talk to each other ever.
Well, I'm glad that you have a resource for men because I personally find it very challenging to work with men
Okay.
because most men are very uh they're very disconnected from their emotions,
Yes.
and they find it very difficult to tap into them, and I get a little annoyed. In fact, I even find some. This is if they haven't done any inner work, because with the modality I use, it's very, very deep. It's very excavating, and so if they have to be ready to go deep. So usually the people I've worked with, this is not they're not on the beginning of their journey. They've been in it for a while, and they want a specific answer to their their love pattern, right? But what I find with men is that they're way behind the eight ball as far as being tuned into their emotions, understanding what's going on within their own body, understanding why they do the things that they do, and even wanting to know why. They don't really question that much. So, do you find, is this what you find to be true?
So
Like,
here's my dramatic illustration of what you're saying. I have a men's group and a women's group, right? And I talk to them every week. And the men's group, I can have 10 men on, and maybe one person will talk. But before that one person talks, I have nothing. No man asking a question, no man starting asking, wondering anything at all. Like 10 men, no activity. And so I'm on the phone and there's nobody there. So they
mhm,
can't talk, right? The women, they come on 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, right? They're all coming on. They're all active. They're all involved. They've all got new questions, right? That they're going to ask because they're women. And that's a really dramatic illustration to put women and men side by side. No involvement for men, lots of involvement for women.
and I bet you, Larry, most of those guys are on there because they feel pressured like they have to by their wives.
Well, this not this group. This group is there because they want to be there. Because remember who they are. They're the stayers. Their
They're
wives are
the
the leavers.
stayers.
That's
So they're
this.
desperate to keep the
Yes.
relationship. They're the stayers.
The-
Okay,
the-
now I know what you mean by who you work with.
yes.
You work with the stayers.
Yes.
And that's pretty beautiful because typically I work with a woman who is at the very end of the marriage, like she's done everything, she's at her wit's end, she doesn't know what else to do, but she feels pretty done and stuck. So, but you mentor the stayers. That's quite
Yes.
interesting.
Because what the stayer is a person who's committed to the idea and the idea of being in love. And what is a stayer also? A stayer is a person raised high on the scale, married to a person raised low on the scale. So the high on the scale person has a happy marriage, saw a happy marriage, had teaching, had nurturing, had all kinds of really good input. What's the lever? The levers had none of that. They're at the bottom of the scale. They have they saw selfishness, they saw lying, they saw survival, they saw stealing, they saw defensiveness, they saw all that stuff. And so that's who they are. And that's what's coming up in the subconscious. So they could do all kinds of things that are all based on that low value system. That low value system is like low.
Hmm.
It's not likable, it's not positive, it's not inspiring. Nothing about it is of any value other than it creates great pain. That's the
Yeah.
only valuable thing for it. The low part of the scale actually creates great pain. And so what happens to the women is I'll give you this analogy. The analogy I call it the seven energy train. The seven energy train is seven cars on a train. And the reason it's called the seven energy train is because these cars carry emotion. And so the cars are made of my mood, my attitude, my feelings, my sensitivity, my energy, my frequency, and my vibrations. Those are the seven cars of the energy train. So you picture the cars going out, and before the cars go, they load up with all the things you're feeling, whatever you're feeling. And so they carry all that out and they carry it out to everybody. Everybody gets it. And so who gets it most? The person you're most involved with, the most you're most emotionally connected to. And so that person you're married, right? That person feels everything you feel on the energy train, right? So what's on the energy train? Well, worry, doubt, fear, frustration, anger, desperation, right? All that stuff is on there. Do you want it on there? No, you don't want it because you don't know there is a train. You didn't know there is a train. You didn't know it was going out. It was giving everything to everybody. There's no secrets. Everything you feel is out there. Now, when everybody collects those, what's on the train, when they get all those feelings, they don't say, "Oh, you're feeling abuse. You're feeling fear. You're feeling doubt. I can feel your anger," right? They don't say those things. They don't say anything. These people who receive the train keep everything quiet. And you know what they do? They make decisions, secret decisions, like, "Oh, I'm not going to be around her anymore," right? They make these decisions. They do it because they get the train, they get the feelings, and nothing's a secret. They feel it. Now, nothing's published. There's nobody who talks about it, but everybody feels it. That's why you can have a girlfriend who was close to you for a long time and now doesn't talk to you anymore. Why? Because the train can't do anything but unload everything you're feeling, right? And then once that train unloads completely, over and over and over again, uh, people they hit their mark and they can't handle it anymore, and they let you go. And that's actually how all relationships work. Relationships work by the seven energy train carrying out your feelings to the world, and then what happens? The world responds. They react. They send everything back. Everything that was on the train comes back with their own interpretation. And so now you feel this wall of energy that you probably don't have the ability to read. You don't know what it like because the train went out, got delivered the emotion, and came back. All this energy came back to you, and now it feels like I don't think I like what I'm feeling right now. I don't think she likes me anymore. I don't think he likes me anymore. Right? All that happens because of the train. And so what I'm teaching is if the train carried positive emotions, calm, secure, safe, important, valuable, likable, upbeat, if you start to put those kinds of feelings on the train, everybody out there is a reactor. They're all reactors, and they can't stop being a reactor. And so since they're all feeling everything your children are feeling, they're great reactors. Your husband, your wife, everybody that you're close to is all reacting to the train. And so now the question is, what are you going to put on the train? And so it's just like you said, it starts here. Why? Because that's where the train comes from. The train comes from me. It
Yeah.
goes out, but it comes from me. And so
Yeah.
you start to realize, what am I going to put on this train for the rest of my life? What am I going to do? And so that kind of makes you start to wonder, like, what's the seven cars again?
Well, I
What?
feel like it's more about, I feel like all that good stuff is there, but it's being squashed out by all the pain.
Yeah.
I think it's the suffering and the wounding that sort of squishes all the good, but because I believe all the good stuff is just naturally in the train, but it's been snuffed out by all the negative emotion. So, like when I'm working with someone, especially in somatics, it's like they can literally pull it out of their body. Like they can feel they tap into where it is. I ask them to put their hand on it. I ask them to identify the color. And once we're done with the process, it's literally out of their body. I'll
Mhm.
be like, "Hey, find the emotion. Is it there?" They're like, "No, I can't find it." It's because we pulled it out off the train. It's
Mhm.
literally in your body. So I feel like all those good things, everything that you want is just being snuffed out by all the uh, really sort of stuck and trapped pain within the body.
So that brings us to people's really biggest challenge is this, how do I control my emotion? How do I change what I feel? That's what they all struggle with. They all struggle with changing how they feel. And so I was using the seven energy train as a way of illustrating that nothing's private. Your feelings are
Right.
not private.
Right. Like some people think they're like our auric field, for instance. Whether or not you believe it really exists, there is Kirlian photography that literally captures it. So it's a thing. And it consists of all your beliefs, all your emotions, everything. That's what you're talking about, Larry. You're talking about what someone feels in your presence. Like I have some people that come up to me and they're like, oh my gosh, they've not even said exchanged a word, but they're like, your energy is so magnetic. And I go, yeah, I work on that. Like that's on purpose.
Mhm.
But they feel it. They don't have to even hear anything from me. They feel it. And we do that with everyone. If someone walks in that door, I know if they're in a good mood, if they're in a bad mood, I know probably I get a really good idea of what they've been thinking about all day because I've tuned my energy to other people. I just know people very intimately, but we're all doing that, whether or not we tune our tuners to feel other people's energy. We all do. And that's what I think you're saying when you're like, you're not hiding anything. People feel it. And the one who feels it the most is the one that's most intimately connected to you. They
Yeah.
share a house, a bed, a closet, finances, and human beings with
Yes.
you. So there
And
ain't no escaping it.
the list that you're sharing is even longer than what you just read
Of
aloud.
course.
So,
Of
that's longer.
course, it's hella long, but it's like there's no hiding it. And but I think that more than anything, Larry, most people are hiding truth from themselves. They don't know their truest, realest, most authentic them because they haven't really discovered he or she. So what they do is they're just wearing all the masks of all that they had to be growing up that helped them survive their family of origin. And so here they're walking around with all these masks, and they're like, then they get to middle age, and then they're like, who am I? What am I? Which mask is really me? Oh, and we're scrambling. And really, it's this like the healing process is just taking them all off one by one. And then we get to I don't know if we ever get to the like core center of the onion, but our lifetime of the healing process is just taking layer by layer off to really find that core essence of who we are, our purpose, why we came here. And there's nothing juicier than getting there. Like that's where we get to sit, Larry, you and I, because
Mhm.
I know you're passionate too about what you get to do and this information you get to bring the world. And I am so passionate about it because like it gave me life, you know? I was suffering so bad before it. So as we wrap this up, I want you to tell everyone where they can find you. Tell them about your books. Sorry, we didn't even get into the books,
Okay.
but tell them where they can find you in the books
So,
and your work.
so the first simple website is youcansavethismarriage.com. And so that's one place. The other place is larrybilotta.com. And between those two places, the YouTube channel for Larry Bilotta. So LarryBilotta. So that's the place where I'm hanging out all the time, 24 hours a day.
24 hours. Dang, Larry, you busy, buddy.
Listening to you, I feel like I'm feeling like I'm listening to all the self-help books I ever read.
Oh no. I'm one big
Because
self-help book.
you see, you're just scanning all the major ideas, like, oh, there's that idea, there's that. This is the idea for the 5,000 authors, you know? It's not like you're the condensation of the 5,000 authors, right? So here you are gelling it down into, so it came out of a painful life, right? Why did it came
Mhm.
out? Like, what was my life? A painful life. What was your life? A painful life, right? When do we learn? That's when we learn, when we have pain.
It's a
What?
great teacher. Huh. I'm
So,
so grateful for it, you know?
So when the men are in the chorus, I explain that the person they married is called the pain provider, and the women in the chorus, I explain that the man they married is the pain provider. And why do I call it the pain provider? Because when that man starts being really nice and stops providing pain, you will stop learning what I'm teaching immediately. You will not pass go. You will not collect $200. You will not continue learning. Why? Because the pain provider stops providing pain. And I've watched it happen. I've
Oh
watched it happen
yeah,
over the years.
that's absolutely true. Like, and I also see in the couples, obviously I'm just working with a woman, but she's attracting her exact opposite. Like for me, even though my husband and I had very similar childhood traumas, we both lost our fathers really young, but when we got triggered, we'd have opposite responses.
Mhm.
So when he triggered me, I'd get like lash out. I was the fight, right? Like a little tantrum. And and that would trigger him. And then his response would be get small, get quiet, hide, become like leave. But and that would trigger me because then he's like abandoning me. And so we'd go in this circle on and on and on we'd go, right?
Wow.
Same with you and your wife. It sounds like we had the same dynamic where my husband's soft. I'm like a feisty little. And of course, we attracted that on purpose because it would be the perfect trigger. And so, what got us off that little trigger track was I began to heal myself. And then all of a sudden, my goat wasn't as gettable because I was loving me. I didn't desperately need his love. He didn't need to show up this way or that way because I recognized that I was going to do that for myself. So then all of a sudden he just got to be the bonus, right? Like he didn't have to show up as some like extraordinary way to prove to me that he loved me to the woman who didn't believe that she was lovable, and he could never prove that to me. I became my own source. And so when we do that in a marriage, when we stop looking to our spouse to be our source, and we become the source for ourselves, all of a sudden two whole people get to come together, and it just gets to be a beautiful union instead of that trigger circle.
Yes.
Anyways.
So when he started to realize that he could be himself because you were being yourself, he didn't feel like he had to go get you to do something or be something after that. Would you say?
Hopefully.
Would you say?
Hopefully. I
Because
mean,
you're hard natured, he's soft natured.
mhm.
And what soft natured and hard when they marry, the strong woman calls the shots. She makes the plans. She gets everything done. She activates everything. And what he starts to do as a soft-natured man, he starts following. Okay, okay,
Mhm.
okay, right? And as he starts following, the hard-natured woman says, "Why don't you start doing some of this? Why don't you start? Why don't you start?" Right? So that starts to happen, and this happens in the hard-natured women married to soft-natured men. And
Yeah.
so when the hard-natured women, I wrote a book called Soft-Natured Woman, soft-natured woman, soft-hearted woman, it's a hard world. And in that book, no soft-hearted woman that I wrote the book for, no one wanted to read it. And why didn't they want to read it? Soft-natured women don't think they have a problem. They don't think they have a problem. They don't want to fix anything, right? So who bought the book? The hard-natured women married the soft-hearted men. That's who bought the book. So I was like off the target because hard-natured women want to fix things. They want to move things. They want to stir things. They want everything to be different.
Well,
And
yeah,
so,
and also we're attracted to our opposite gifting.
yes,
So my gifting, like I'm not attracted to myself.
that's
Like
right.
I'm not attracted to others that have my same gifting. I'm attracted to my opposite gifting, right? And same with him. I couldn't imagine like, have you seen marriages where two soft-natured people come together? They have a very boring experience. And if you see two, uh, what did you call them? I call them drivers. Like on the personality test, they're drivers. And when they're in their unhealthy state, they're controllers. But we're drivers, and you can't see two drivers together. It is just a mess, right? So it's like we have to have that energy flow of the yin and the yang. That's part of the experience, and yet it triggers each other. So either way, marriage is not here to do anything really except for heal you by holding up that mirror. And I think that's also why we're drawn to our opposite. We are drawn to the opposite because that's the collaborative thing of like when these two heal themselves and then they work together, it becomes a force of nature. Like, my husband and I do this business together, and we create really cool things together. We could not have done that when we were in our toxic.
That's true. Yeah. So it's nothing like a life well lived for real advice.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Was such a beautiful conversation with you,
Cool.
Larry. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Danny. I'd really like to see all the self-help books I've ever read illustrated right here.
When you say right here, what do you mean?
Because when you share all these ideas that you know to be true, what you're doing is you're reflecting all the things that have been written about for years that we don't know, but they've been written about. Like I could pick all the authors that talk about these ideas,
Uh-huh.
and in some way. They talk about them in some way. So you have your own way of expressing them, and they have their own way of expressing them. But the idea, the core idea, is like, oh, there's like the inner child, or there's like loving yourself, or so all these ideas that you're talking about are like that. This is all the self-help books I've ever read, all being summed up in one screen.
Yeah.
I like that.
Embodied wisdom. This is,
Yes.
when the things I speak of, they're the principles that I won't say mastered, but I've embodied. They
Mhm.
went from the head into the body, meaning I did more than just consume the information, say, oh, that's a great idea. I acted it out. I put it into motion. There we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
That's what embodied means to me, is like putting it into motion. It's taking the idea and utilizing it and putting into motion in my life. Yeah, that's embodiment.
That's a very good description. Very good description. And
Yes.
that's true because if you got a man you're still married to, and you had the chaotic childhood that you had, that's like proof of like a doctorate proof.
Yeah. It's like if I not only survived, but I totally recalibrated my nervous system. That was the most challenging part for me. It was neutralizing the trauma and bringing myself to that neutral space within me where every because I used to have so many wounds that no matter where you tapped, it was an ouchie. I was just one big gaping open wound. So it didn't take much to trigger me because I had all these open wounds. I don't know why my husband signed up for the master class with marrying me, but he did. And I don't know why he stayed for most of it, but he chose to. But it was a master class for him, yeah. And I bet it still is.
People have a lot of questions about you and your husband because they want to know about, like, okay, I know who you are, I think, but what did he do about this? And what did he do about that? And what did he do? Right? They have all kinds of questions about how he worked around you and how he lives with you and how he's productive with you and how he's being helped by you or even likes you, right? How's that even possible, right?
Mm.
Because that's a telling proof for how I could live with my husband, right? That kind of thing. And so they want to know all those pieces of how he handled everything you did and everything you became,
Hmm.
right? Because they know the origin story about your childhood pain, but they don't know, like, you actually kept the guy. He stayed with you. What? How could that happen?
Yeah, that is pretty interesting. Yeah, he did, and he couldn't be shaken off. So I guess, yeah, I guess probably people would have questions about that.
Well, yeah, because he should have, right?
Yeah. Well, I even told him, I was like, I wouldn't like, I want better for you than me. Like, I want you to have better than me.
But that's really a person with a pretty poor self-image. I'm not as good as you need me to be. You need somebody
Yeah.
better than me, right?
Yeah.
That's a poor self-image. But you've moved past that poor self-image thing because you have gone after your children and healed their children, especially your teenage child. And
Dang, how much of my story did you hear? What did you watch of mine?
well, I'm just getting all these impressions from you,
Oh,
and
you are? You're
I'm
pulling this right now?
no, I'm just collecting all these impressions from you. I'm thinking, oh, she had an inner child that she healed. Oh, she had a teenage inner child that she healed. Wow, this is some pretty phenomenal work she's doing.
Mm. Oh, I
And
thought you
then
were
and
talking about my teenage children.
no, I'm not talking about your teenager. I'm talking about you as a teenager in your inner child, right? Your inner child came, as a teenager. Your inner child came as a 6-year-old. Your inner child came up as these little moments that we're talking about, which you're healing them, and you've successfully healed them. And what the proof is when a man who's soft-hearted wants to stay with his hard-natured wife and not leave her, she's done a really great job. That's like phenomenal work. That's like getting a PhD that you got to respect from a prestigious university.
Well, he wanted to stay with me even before I healed.
Well, even before you heal, there's reasons to do codependent stuff and stories like that. But if he wants to stay with you after you heal, that's like, whoa, this guy's really good. He's willing to stay for the change and stay for the healing and stay for the improvement. Like,
Oh.
wow, that's a big deal to stay. He wants to stay for the improved person, right? Typically, when a big change happens, people want to leave.
Well,
Now,
there was that time in between where he was like, "Wait, you're disrupting the whole system. Like all of a sudden, where's my fight buddy? Who am I going to argue with?" Like there was a time where he was like, "You're switching everything up." And he was very confused and frazzled by it, but then he saw the peace that I was experiencing. Then he saw that it was sticking. Then he saw that I wasn't resorting back, that the changes were staying. And then I think he was like, "Oh, I think I need some of this peace. It looks nice. Looks good."
yeah, well, but that means you got the real thing, and you got the real thing. That's actually what I'm telling these people in this course. In my course, I'm saying when you become the better, improved person, when you heal the things that need to be healed, what can you do but be happier? And if you're happier, the person you marry wants to be around that. And so that's really what the story of your husband is. He wants to be around that. And so that's an authentic, real, genuine change. That's really there. It's not faked
Yeah,
or pretend. That's a real story. And it's
indeed.
really great to see a real story like that.
Yeah.
You should be an author.
Should I?
Yes, you should.
Oh gosh, should I tell my story, Larry?
Well, you never know who you're going to reach when you get your story in your brochure. That's what they call books today. They call them brochures because your book becomes your calling card.
Yes. Well, it sure has been lovely getting to know you, Larry. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, I like being here. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. And do you use the reels? If I sent you the reels that we use on our social media platform, will you use those later?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay. Okay, good.
yeah.
We'll send you them.
Those are hard to make.
Oh,
Yes.
well, we have software for that,
Okay.
Larry. We don't
That's
do
how
that.
advanced you are. That's how advanced you are. I have
Yeah,
software.
we don't mess around with. Well, my husband's the techie guy, so he'll fiddle with it, but I'm like, that's not worth your time. Babe, don't do that. But it does make it faster, and
Okay.
it like picks the perfect moments, and I don't know,
Mhm.
it's nice. So
Okay.
if we make it, we might as well give it to you to shoot out.
So everybody who's unknown, everybody who's not popular, everybody who's not in the big leagues still has a television station. That's what you have. You got a television station.
Exactly. And um, who knows where it's going to take them.
Yes, that's right.
They're not going to stay small for long. They're going to stay consistent and go
Well,
worldwide.
that's the whole question. Who stays consistent? It's like who's an artist? Who becomes an artist and stays an artist? It's the same kind of thing. But that's really what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the Tammy Cox television show.
Oh, are you?
Well, that's what this looks like.
D
That's your set.
Yeah, my set is set. Yeah, it does look like it. I mean, my husband's like, "Oh, you're like Oprah." Like, I wouldn't go that far, but
Yeah. You know, Oprah wrote a book called "What Happened to You." Do you remember that book? What happened to
yeah,
you?
I do. I
So,
never read it though.
oh it's
I like the really, you know what I'm into right now, Larry?
but
Past life regression.
oh, I love past life regression.
So like
Have you read Destiny of Souls?
No. Is that Weiss? Brian Weiss?
No, this is Michael Norton. No, I might get
What is
just
it called?
just a minute. It's called Destiny of Souls by
Okay.
Nelson.
Okay, I'm
Destiny of
gonna look
Souls.
that up because I have a new one I need to start on. So I love Dolores Cannon. I've
Oh
read
yeah.
several of her books. Sarah Bressman, who is Dolores's predecessor, kind of.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then I have done Journey of Souls.
Yes,
But I
that's his Journey of
huh?
Souls. Journey of Souls is his book.
Oh,
Destiny of Souls is his next book.
okay. Okay, so I'll have to read that one next. But yeah, I'm into all that stuff.
I can see why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm into. So I started in self-help books and now I'm all the way into like the real weird shit.
You're gonna find the truth eventually, the deeper you dig.
Yeah. And then the truth, it is constantly unfolding. I mean, truth is just interesting. I have an interesting relationship with truth because it's constantly expanding out.
But you know it when you see it. You
Yeah.
know
And when
truth when you see it.
I feel it in my guts, my body knows a yes.
Mhm.
It's like, yes. Well, you let me know, Larry, if there's anything that I could do for you.
Well, send me your reels.
Okay. That
I,
I can
I,
do.
I use that.
Cool.
Okay. Even though I'm not a techie.
You're not techie, but you can slap them on. You said you have a YouTube channel, right?
Oh, I got somebody who's making that happen.
Okay, someone does it for you. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you can throw it out there.
I didn't stay up to date on my technological prowess. I didn't
Well,
say.
that's okay if you have someone to do it for you. I don't do all that stuff myself, but my husband does. So,
Mhm.
yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Well, you have a
Uh,
fabulous evening, and yeah, we'll stay in touch.
okay. Thank you, Tammy. Very
You're
good. I
welcome. Bye, Larry.
look forward to your book.
Yes, I'll
Okay.
send you a copy.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.